Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Summerville, South Carolina. And this is where we bring you the latest news, events, and interviews with people who make our town special. I'm Chris Makowski, the town's public information officer, and your host for the town's new podcast. In today's episode, we're honored to have Chief of Police Chief Wright with us. Chief Wright leads the Summerville Police Department and is committed to ensuring the safety and well-being of our community. We're excited to learn more about the department and Chief Wright's vision for policing in Summerville. Welcome to the show, Chief.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
We're excited to have you. I'm excited to have a conversation with you, to sit down and just talk about policing and the Summerville Police Department. So, to start, before we go into the police department, I just want to know a little bit more about yourself. Where did you come from, and what led you to the Summerville Police Department?
So I was actually born in New Jersey, and my dad was in the Marine Corps, so we migrated down here to South Carolina, and actually grew up on James Island. So not from Summerville, from yonder, but we grew up over there, on James Island, saltwater community. On the beach all the time, and just really great place to grow up. And the only thing I knew about Summerville was they were just really good in athletics. They were great teams. And when I finally made it to middle school, when I was on junior varsity teams, I quickly learned that the trips were very long to the flower town. We lost, and it was a very long ride home. So, but then as I went into varsity sports, I was a three-letter athlete. I wrestled, I played football, and I was on the track team. And actually, something that nobody knows, I sang in chorus. I was actually the president of the chorus. Yep.
Okay. I can see it.
No one made fun of me though. So, but anyway, yeah. So, ended up. I knew from a small age I wanted to be a United States Marine, and I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps. He was a Marine. He was wounded in Vietnam and came back, was a drill instructor, and that's kind of my upbringing, was under a drill instructor. And I knew at a young age I was going to Marine Corps, so I wanted to play football or wrestle in college once I got out, and my eyes were on the Citadel, and that didn't work out. So I just went ahead and went straight in the Marine Corps. I was going to go active duty, but I was in love with my high school sweetheart, so I've been with now for 31 years.
Nice.
So I ended up going in the Marine Corps Reserves, worked at Charleston County Sheriff's Office as an animal control officer until I was 21, and then I got picked up in law enforcement, and I came to Summerville in '97, and that's all she wrote. It's been a great journey, and I'm just blessed and honored to have made it this long in my career and been elevated to where I am, to be able to serve the citizens of the town of Summerville, but more importantly, to take care of the people who work with me and by my side every day.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome to hear, and that actually that's a perfect segue into my next point or topic, is talking about the police department. Could you just provide our listeners a little background on the Summerville Police Department as a whole?
Well, we've grown exponentially along with the population, as everybody knows. The town, obviously, we have probably 54,000 people in the town, they say. I seem to believe it's a lot more, but we police in 3 counties, which is very unusual. There's only 3 municipalities in South Carolina that have 3 counties in them, and we're one of them, North Charleston being another. So we have to deal with 3 different sheriff's offices and 3 different jails, which is fine. But a lot of paperwork. Everybody's paperwork is different. Everybody's procedures are different. But we have between 205 and 225,000 cars that travel through our town a day.
Oh, wow.
And those people stop and get gas. They eat food here. They grocery shop. They go to the parks and enjoy our parks, which we love. But with that being said, we are protecting that many people each day. If they're in their car crash on Main Street, if they get their purse taken from them or something like that, we're handling those calls for service. We're helping people when, all throughout the Low Country right here in Summerville. Summerville is a very progressive, innovative police agency, and I'm not saying that I put it there, but my predecessors have set us up to be in a very unique position with technology, with advanced police techniques and equipment. And so currently we have 130 sworn police officers here in Summerville.
Okay.
I think when I came here, going on 26 years ago, we probably had close to 40.
That's a big jump.
It's a jump, but it's a needed jump.
Yeah.
And so there's a national average we are supposed to be staying at, and we're very close to it. But with the growth that's coming here and expansion, obviously you're going to have to see more growth in law enforcement and fire service. But anyway, we have 20 reserve officers, which they come in, they're auxiliary, they work for free because they're just great people. They want to kind of give back to their community, and they come from all walks of life. I have one who is an executive officer in the United States Navy here at the Navy Nuclear Weapons, our nuclear submarine school here in Goose Creek. I've got guys that, that just all kinds of backgrounds that come here, and it's great, man. It's just good to have all these people come in and sacrifice and give to the citizens for free. So we love our reserve officers. We have about 20 dispatchers. We have our own dispatch center here at Summerville. It dispatches fire and police, which is important to know. So when you are in the town of Summerville and you call from your cell phone, it's going to go to Summerville Police and Fire. They will then direct you to, if you need EMS service, they'll direct you to Dorset County or Berkeley County or Charleston County EMS. And certainly whatever fire district you're in, if you're not in the town of Summerville, they'll assist you. There's also automatic aid where they work in interoperability between the two agencies, or 3 or 4 agencies around. But Summerville is just very unique, and it's a tranquil, used to say quiet town, but it's actually a bustling, very fast evolving, growing town. We're seeing a lot of people move here from other parts of the United States, which we've never seen before, which is a good thing. It's bringing a very unique, diverse crowd here. I know the people who live here may not like all that, but I think it's good for the economy. It's good for livability. It's good for challenging businesses and entrepreneurs to be able to get out there and have good jobs and make for good challenging careers. So.
Yeah, no, and in our previous episode, Mayor brought up the fact that we were growing and the growth here in Summerville and the positive look of the growth, and the growth's not going to stop. With the Low Country being as bustling and as attractive as it is, obviously more folks are going to move to Summerville because there's nowhere else to live, downtown, and so it comes out and it comes to our area. So. Bringing those businesses and having the safety and security that we do with y'all is crucial. But we talked about, I appreciate you kind of giving the detail on the different departments, but what services does the police department have?
Good question. So we answer around 100,000 calls for service last year, just under, which is actually down a little bit from the year before. Certainly we were up last year from the year before because of COVID.
Yeah.
But people are back out. They're on the streets. They're driving around. They're going to public functions and events, which is great. Life seems to have gone back to normal in most cases. But we provide, obviously, uniform patrol services, which is your regular street cop that you see driving a police car. They're wearing a uniform. But don't take for granted if you see a police officer wearing a uniform that they are your standard patrol officer that are working shifts. But basically the way we're structured is we have 4 patrol shifts here at Summerville. They work 12-hour shifts. The 4 basic patrol shifts, you have 2 night shifts and 2 day shifts. So they come in at 5:30 in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, and they go home usually, if things aren't crazy, at 5:30, 5:45, or 6 o'clock at the end of their shift each day. We have a team 5 that comes in, and they are what we call a power shift. They're more intelligence led, and they come in and they basically are there to augment the officers who are leaving, that are getting off duty, and the ones that are coming on duty. So they are basically call takers for a window of time in the evening time. And they usually stay. They come about 10 in the morning, and they work until about 8:30, 8 o'clock at night. So that way, these officers, we conduct shift briefings every day at our police headquarters. And what they do is they, just like you used to see in the old days, they have what they call a pass down, and everything that happened the day or the night before, or the days or nights before they weren't working, that's passed along to the officers coming in. We have Team 6, which is our hospitality team, we call them, and they are basically they are there for our businesses, our hotels, our shops, our stores, and they are there to have a face with the police department where they actually have a voice directly to law enforcement. I think a lot of times businesses get taken for granted, or they feel they were taken for granted because a police officer comes for a shoplifting, they take the report and they leave. There's not a real relationship between the police department in that business other than that. These officers have broken down those walls and the barriers, and they go around, they walk the hotels, they meet the different managers on duty, they communicate with them, hey, if you see suspicious activity, let us know. The box stores, naturally you have a lot of shoplifting, you have car fender benders, things like that. So that's what Team 6 does, and they're very, very, very good people. They're out there walking beats a lot. We have a traffic safety unit, which was mostly founded on grants. But if you've driven in this town and you're listening to this podcast, you probably have identified traffic as being probably the biggest major problem we have in the town of Summerville. So keeping that in mind, we have to be able to handle these collisions and get them cleared off the road. That's why we have motorcycles, if they can navigate through heavy traffic, get them off the road so we can get the traffic flowing again. And then obviously, most importantly, prevent collisions through enforcement and education measures. We have a traffic fatality team that works out of that unit that actually handles fatalities or any collision that involves a very high value of property or human life. Another service we provide is our crisis intervention team.
Okay. So
we stood them up just last year with American Rescue Plan money. We're one of the only agencies in South Carolina that has this program. So we have 2 full-time police officers with a mental health clinician that are embedded with them from the Department of Mental Health that is funded by the town of Summerville. And what they do is they proactively handle mental illness calls for service. These calls are very dynamic. They require a heavy lifting of being able to converse with people that are dealing with hardship, that are going through a lot. And a lot of this deals with homelessness. Obviously, it goes hand in hand with mental illness and alcoholism, drug use. But they're specially trained police officers. All of our officers at Summerville are trained in crisis intervention, but this team deals with it every day, and they conduct follow-up visits with mental health, so they're able to keep up with different cases and whatnot. So this helps us because these calls take sometimes up to 3 and 4 hours at a time for one service call. If we have to take somebody in emergency protective custody, which requires them going to the hospital to get the help they need. So I credit council for allowing me to do that and stand that up. I think that was a good move. And so we have a criminal investigative division. There's general investigations. They handle robberies. They handle white-collar crime. They handle homicides, rapes, arson, anything like that. General investigators assigned to the general investigators. We also have a crime scene unit. So we have 3 crime scene technicians that are in there that basically they handle all the evidence for the police department, and they have to maintain and store and keep up with that. And then when we have any type of serious crime where there's value of over $10,000 of something that's been taken, or if it's a very serious crime on a person, they will respond and they will actually process the scene. Police officers are trained at basic level to do that, so they will fingerprint your car or something like that on the scene if they show up to it. But these people have a lot more equipment and a lot more training, and they can come in and they can do a much more dynamic job there. So we have a warrants division, which is one person. He handles warrants for service that are people who are wanted. He tries to get them to come turn themselves in peacefully, so we don't have to go find them. And then he also acts as a court liaison, so he's over here provides security and basically is an intermediary between us and the court. We have a victims advocate that is assigned to basically our criminal investigations division, and what they do is they are responsible for any type of crime, like a domestic violence case or something like that. They will actually follow up with those victims and help make sure they get the services and the help they need. And so that was started out paid for with a grant, but we absorbed that. We also have a mental health clinician, aside from the one assigned to the crisis intervention team, that's actually housed in our police headquarters from the Department of Mental Health. So they are there for victims who need victim services, so they need someone to talk to. So we run a very dynamic program here at the police department of Summerville. Going around to the other side of the building, we have our canine unit. So we have 7 police canines that are trained in narcotics and obviously patrol handling, which they could track. Some of our dogs are tracking apprehension, but all of them are trained in tracking article recovery, and that's also narcotics. So we have a bike patrol team, collateral duty. We have a SWAT team with about 20 members on it. That's a collateral duty. We have an honor guard that's a collateral duty. We have a civil disturbance team that we stood up after the situation we had with the riots in Charleston a couple years ago. We had police officers sent to FLETC, which is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and we have officers that are trained federally through federal means. We equipped all those officers, so if we have an event here that gets out of control and unruly with protesters, they can come in and help protect the businesses and people. Really great thing we have going on there. And then we have people that are assigned for criminal investigations to assign to the federal task forces. So basically we have one assigned to the DEA, we have one assigned to the U.S. Marshal Service, and I have one assigned to the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force, and have one assigned to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Okay.
So you're asking, why do we have assets in those units assigned to them? Because that gives us a ticket to the front row seat to be involved with any type of federal investigations that are going on. It allows us to be able to marry together with those different federal entities. If you have a fugitive or somebody who's wanted, someone who's dangerous, which we do, we have instant access to that task force for the U.S. Marshals, and they can go anywhere they need to go to find you, and they will. And obviously we have a lot of federal investigations with the DEA for drugs and the fentanyl crisis and whatnot. Just a lot of great stuff going on here. I know that's a lot to digest, but I know the spiel pretty good because I say it so much to people when they come in and I interview them.
No, that's great to hear. And for the listeners, if you had any question that if Summerville's police department wasn't up to par, then I don't know what else to tell you, because that's to me seems like y'all are staying ahead of the game and innovative and thinking forward as a department, which is...
Well, there's two that I failed to mention, and I shouldn't, because they're two very important entities. And obviously that's our school resource officers. We have 13 of them, and they're in all the schools in town. I have a couple at Summerville High School, and obviously they are just amazing. It used to be, and I hate to say this, but back in the old days, back when I came in, it seemed like people who were put into SROs were people who just didn't want to work, and they wanted to just go to a place where they didn't have to really do anything. And obviously that wasn't everybody, but that was just kind of the mystique. But we've learned that is one of the most important, valuable positions in law enforcement right now, because right now more than ever, we need to be with these children while they're growing up and going through the education process, because the bullying that goes on, the different things these people are dealing with their home life, where they have an absentee parent, or they have one parent in the household that works as the only breadwinner, and these kids are tired, sometimes don't do their homework, they don't have a role model. And that's what these police officers are doing. They're actually meeting these kids, and they foster this relationship with them from a very young age. And last but not least is our special enforcement team, our SET team. I'm very proud of them. They just won national honors for a second year in a row for the street level criminal interdiction team of the year. And we had an officer on that team win the street level police officer of the year for the entire country. So I'm real proud of them, and they are a very proactive unit. They go to wherever there's crime in town, wherever seeing influx in crime, an uptick, if you will, they go to those areas and they proactively police them by stopping vehicles that are breaking the law, interviewing drivers and occupants, stopping people who are impeding traffic on bicycles and whatnot, or just getting out there and asking people if we had a crime, a murder, a shooting, a drive-by, asking them if they've seen any vehicles or anything like that in the area. And it's good because the residents that are obeying the law really like seeing the blue. They want to see us in their neighborhood. And it's the ones that don't want to see us there are usually the ones that are doing things they shouldn't be doing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, which I kind of want to dig deeper on, is building that trust between the community and the police department, right? What are some things that the department is doing to help build that relationship and that trust between both the community and the department?
That's a great question, and I'm going to tell you something right now. That is probably the most profound project for the entire profession of law enforcement to work on right now. Mm-hmm. And that is, we have lost the trust in many ways of society. And it hasn't been hasn't been an entire organization or entire profession. It's been a very, very, very small percentage. Just like you have doctors who have malpractice, or you have teachers who break the law, and I'm using those two because we're both lumped in with them, and they're lumped in with us. Anytime you see somebody about someone being arrested, it's always a teacher or a doctor or a cop. You don't ever see that the welder got arrested or the guy working at the Walgreens got arrested, unless it's something real serious, right?
Yeah.
But I say that because we have to do better as a profession. We have to do better. We have to be cautiously aware of everything we do is watched, and everything we don't do is watched, both on and off duty. It's a very hard profession to be in for a lot of reasons, because you are judged all the time. And I say that because you go to a party with your spouse, it's an office party, you show up and everybody's like, oh, that's the officer that arrested so-and-so, that's the officer I saw on TV, it's just, I say that. But what we're doing proactively is, after what we saw with George Floyd and the situation in Minneapolis, we realized, we felt helpless as a profession. I sat here and watched the video in almost real time.
Yeah.
And it brought me, it just really brought me to a very sad time in this profession, that we are at a time where we have one person doing something wrong and nobody's there to stop them. All these people, these police officers standing around, and they're not doing their jobs of trying to intervene, and they have a duty to intervene. They should have. Obviously, there's consequences for that, and they're paying those consequences. But I say that because absolutely, it started to bleed down into different cities across the country. We're watching the cities on fire, police cars on fire, people attacking the police in the streets, taking years and years and years of disrespect that they have experienced and encountered in their lives and what they've seen, and taking it out on local law enforcement. So I myself and Rich Robinson, who's a chaplain of the Coastal Crisis Chaplaincy, and Chief John Rodders, who retired, we sat down and said, look here, we want to come together and do something. What does this look like? So we ended up starting a grassroots effort called the Dignity Project, and it's been going on 3 years now.
Okay.
And we have people who are male, female. We have different ethnic groups that are involved, Hispanic, Muslim, different religious backgrounds. We have pastors on the group. We have educators, retired educators. We've got people who are entrepreneurs here in the town that have businesses. We even have a high school student that's on it. And what we do is we've been meeting every 2 weeks, and it started because we had to go to Zoom. So for 2 weeks, for 3 years, we've only not met a couple times.
Yeah.
And we get on there and have very challenging, difficult conversations about what's going on in the temperature and the climate around the country in law enforcement, but more specifically what's going on here in the town of Summerville. And we had an incident, which I can't get into because of litigation, that occurred that has been very public, and it was a situation where a person was mistreated very, very horribly, and that former officer was arrested and charged, as he should have been, for the situation. And we took proactive measures there. That's not the way we behave in this department or in law enforcement. And obviously, anytime you see something like that happens, you need to make sure that you act as proactively as a law enforcement entity. So the Dignity Project has been amazing. We've all become very close friends, but we're not scared to tell each other about this didn't look good, or we saw this, or we heard that. So when stuff happens within the organization, like what I'm telling you about, I went straight to them and told them what was going on, and told them it was not going to be a good situation, obviously. And so that's exactly what we did. And that level of transparency has helped us build trust between us and them. And they have stood shoulder to shoulder with us as a law enforcement organization, because they know that we hold people accountable and there's transparency.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of that. And I'm seeing more of that than I've seen before. Several of our agency brothers or sister agencies here in the Low Country, we're all very close. All of us are. And I could say honestly, 100%, that every single agency is making a concerted effort to try to do the exact same thing and emulate that particular model of policing, and that's to be transparent and to be upfront and to hold people accountable. Because if we're not held accountable, who holds us accountable, right? We need to be held accountable, and I say that because when you see a situation like what happened in Memphis recently, those officers were held accountable, and it was swift. And I think that is the reason why you didn't see the rioting in the streets. I think it was handled very well by the city of Memphis and their government, and that should be the kind of situation that when you see that happen, that it's handled swiftly like that.
No, that's good, and I appreciate your answer there, and that kind of makes me curious about, in your opinion, what are some of the most pressing issues here in the town of Summerville as we sit here today?
Yeah. So I said one of them is traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic is one of them. Obviously, the infrastructure. As we grew, infrastructure did not. We were very blessed that we were able to get the final leg of the Bronzemeyer Parkway approved, and we thank all our government officials working with Department of Transportation, U.S. Army engineers. Obviously, I think Senator Graham. There was a lot of people involved in that, and it's amazing because it's going to take a lot of traffic off of Main Street.
Yeah. And
that's where we're seeing a lot of influx. Hopefully, vehicles won't be clogging up Central Avenue in the afternoons, and they'll be able to go over to Main Street and cut over. Also, too, there's been other road projects. And why are you talking about this, Chief Wright? This is not law enforcement. Everything that happens in this community is impacted in law enforcement.
Good point.
Every single thing that happens. It doesn't matter if it's a drainage issue, and there's backflow and there's flooding. The police have to be involved. I mean, every single thing that goes on in this town, police and fire, but more so, I think police, is because we respond to so many more calls for service.
Yeah.
Than the fire department. But traffic's first. But I think we're seeing, obviously, the Maple Street extension is great. Obviously, when they eventually get the TIF going, the Midtown TIF, and we start getting looking at the plans to extend North Cedar Street to Berkeley Circle, that's going to take more traffic off of Main Street. It's a really good thing that's going on here that you're seeing. It seems like it's too late. Like it's almost too late, but it's okay because we have some forward thinking minds here on our council, and even the county councils that we work closely with that want to see a team effort between everybody to make our roadways more safe and obviously more maneuverable.
Yeah.
Second, is probably going to be fentanyl. The fentanyl, the overdoses that we're seeing here in Summerville are they're unbelievable. It is not unusual for our officers to push Narcan. We usually get there first before EMS because they're in big trucks before fire. They're not as maneuverable as police, and we can get there, but we have a lot more of us out there. So we're pushing Narcan and saving lives on the daily, and you would never know it because it doesn't get reported. These officers are doing it. It's reported to the state, so they keep up with it. Every overdose that occurs, our narcotics division, which is I failed to mention them, which is probably a good thing. Our narcotics division is assigned under narcotics, is under general investigations. They're a tree off to the side of a branch, if you will, of the tree. And they're assigned to Metro Narcotics. Us in Dorset County are under one roof working cases together undercover. And they are notified and they actually investigate every single overdose, whether people live or die here in the town of Summerville. So what we have here is hotels. So we have a lot of them happening at the hotels. And then what's even more scary to me is to see the age of the younger people that are overdosing, and we're having to bring back to life. If you haven't seen anything like that, it's not anything you'd want to see of a family member, to see them blue, in a fetal position on the floor and not breathing. But then you see us come in, or fire EMS come in, we push Narcan, and they automatically just come to life. And they're walking around within 10 minutes. It's absolutely an amazing drug. But there's times we're not getting there, and people are dying, or they're overdosing and coming back out of it, and it's not reported. So drug overdoses, and obviously homelessness. To me, we are seeing more homelessness than we've ever seen before. A lot of that could be contributed to people being pushed out of other areas in the greater metropolitan Charleston area, from Charleston, North Charleston up here, Maybe they think they can come up here. It's a hey, everybody wants to move to Summerville, right?
Yeah.
So they come up here and they end up living in the woods or living behind a business, walking their carts with their belongings in it. That's their whole livelihood. Or they're coming here from other states and they move here, with hopes to have a job or to do something, and it didn't work out. And so that's what they do. And some people want help. Many of those that we deal with, and we have a homeless census that our hospitality team, which we're talking about, Team 6,
Yeah.
they deal with them a lot, and they've conducted censuses, and I'm telling you, a lot of people just don't want the help. They want to panhandle, not all of them, but they want to panhandle. And what people have to understand is this is a community problem. This is not a police problem. This is a problem where I think your religious, your churches, and civic groups and stuff like that, they need to help work together with us to compromise and help us work together to get these people on their feet, to get them jobs, to get them placed, to get them, back into a place where they have dignity and respect for themselves again. And I say it all the time, it's not a police problem. Arresting homeless people is not the answer.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the money to get out of jail. And when they get out of jail, they recidivize and do the exact same thing again. They go back to doing what they know best, and that's panhandling. So I say that because I think the problem's much deeper than what anybody thinks. When they're driving down Main Street, the last thing I want to see is a person standing on the center median holding up a sign that says, need food, need money. That's an eyesore. And it might not be for people who have come from other parts of the country where it's much more prevalent, but it is an eyesore for a beautiful town like Summerville. We want to try to help these people get the help they need, but we need the people who are listening to this podcast to help us get these people placed where they need to go. So
yeah, no, that's good, and it's crazy to hear, how the drug overdose issue is, you said daily, and it's sad to hear, and. Outside of Narcan and the drug, is there anything else that, maybe the community, anyone listening, or the department can do to help the problem?
Yeah, so we actually have teamed up with the First Circuit Solicitor's Office and the Dorchester Drug and Alcohol Commission, and we've actually been putting on classes about how to administer Narcan.
Oh,
and,
nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we've been doing that. We stood that effort up with them. We're collaborating with them. And I know people think that's going to disincentivize people to take drugs. Well, look, they're going to take the drugs whether there's Narcan or not. It is what it is. And some of them even take it knowing that there's Narcan, that they can bring themselves back to life. But having this miracle drug of Narcan and being able to combat it is another tool on our belt, and we have to keep that in mind. Whether you all as listeners. You could say you hate drug users, you hate drug dealers, but there's always somebody in your family that's deeply affected by this. And would you want them to die? Would you want your son or daughter to die? And that's what I think people don't understand. It doesn't know race or creed or ethnic background. It just knows that it's an addiction, and opioid addiction is at an all-time high. We've never seen so much fentanyl coming into the United States. It's worth more in gold than worth more than methamphetamine, cocaine. It's laced with anything you see powder. You're seeing coming in now is you're seeing fentanyl being put into it, and you can't even touch one grain will kill you. So we have officers who have touched fentanyl, and we've had to take them to the hospital. It's deadly. So we keep that, and that's obviously evident. The last thing I'll say is that people don't know about is we keep this town safe. We're not on the news every day with some of the stuff you see in other cities around the state, but we do a really good job of keeping the town safe, and that's because our police agency, we are founded on the benchmark of proactive policing. That's what this organization is about. That is what we do. We're not reactive.
Yeah.
Government's job is to protect their people, and so that's what police and fire does. We protect the people. Everything is documented on body-worn camera. There's just so many moving pieces so many things people would never understand. But being proactive is going out there and making things happen.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Chief. And speaking on being proactive, the future of the department, right? We have seen, and just from what our talk here, you've talked about the growth of the department and how it's going to have to continue to grow because of the growth that is happening in our area and our community. As a chief, and what is the future vision of the police department?
Well, I hope I don't make any enemies on council because that's who I work for. And it's not, the challenges are not council. I just want them to hear, or anybody who's listening to hear, the growth is coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. We're going to be here, and we're going to be landlocked. We're going to be gridlocked, just like this, with no control over what we can do. Or we can control what's going on and make sure the town looks the way it looks and is protected the way it's protected.
Yeah.
And nothing against my friends at the local sheriff's offices, but obviously rural policing is what generally sheriff's offices do, and they do have pockets of donut holes and stuff that are in the cities in North Charleston, Summerville, and Berkeley. But at the end of the day, the growth is coming. We are policing all these other people. They're going to continue to come here because it's an amazing, beautiful town where people are respected. It's clean. The schooling is fantastic for South Carolina. And people want to go to parks and go to the movies and feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's what we bring here. So unfortunately, with that comes a price tag, and that is to have law enforcement and fire. And so I think we did a needs assessment about 4 or 5 years ago, and we looked at the number, and we're probably going to be close to a 300-man police department within 20 years. Wow. And that was with the growth we knew about that was coming 4 or 5 years ago. So think about things that are popping up all over town and around town that are not in the town or that are wanting to come into the town. So there's a lot of potential growth there. And so the biggest challenge we're facing now, and I am so thankful and just blessed to work for the council I work for, because they fully support their public safety. They support the town. They support their employees, but they fully support law enforcement and fire. Yeah. And I say that because, unfortunately, if it's a red truck, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Our fleet is expensive to maintain. Our equipment is expensive. There's nothing cheap about public safety. So it is an expensive piece of the pie when you're talking about budgets and allotments. But at the end of the day, our biggest issue we're dealing with right now, as far as that goes, and I say I was thankful for council, is the room and space we have at the police headquarters at 300 West 2nd North Street. So we've been there since 1989, and the building is only it's under 15,000 square feet, and we have about 164 employees that are working, or we're working under that footprint. They're not all there at one time because we would never be able to be. There'd be no parking, but they took a proactive measure and approach. There's a strategic plan that we are trying to stick with that we were advised of last October, and they made a really proactive step of getting the law enforcement out of, at least some of us, out of the building we're in. They acquired the Dominion Energy property on North Cedar Street by the railroad tracks as a temporary holdover. So we were able to move about 32 personnel to that location. A bunch of vehicles, part of our vehicles are worked on over there. Our entire training unit was moved there. Our traffic safety unit, everything under special operations moved over there. And what that did, that compression opened up a lot of space where we had actually made office space out of closets there. We had breaking out walls to make a bigger area for people to work. It was just a very, it was not sustainable. Leaks in the ceiling. We had we still do. It hasn't stopped. At least we have trash cans in the hallway with water coming down. And I've got millions of dollars in infrastructure over there, and just dispatch equipment, wiring, networking. There's hundreds of miles of wire in our ceiling. So I say all that because they recognized that, and they took a proactive step to get us moved out of there. So obviously there's a plan that our council is working with closely with town administrator, and she's helping keep them on track because they have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, of course.
And it's hard to keep up with everything sometimes. So we're hoping the next step in here will be, that's supposed to be probably a 5-year holdover until they can identify where hopefully the court may or may not move to, where police headquarters, the new police headquarters is going to be stood up and built. And then obviously what that would do is it would open up 300 West 2nd North Street for the fire department to expand their footprint there as an administrative fire headquarters and move the training and a lot of stuff under one roof because they're decentralized just like we are. So I say that just because, man, we're just in a great place here. And I'm not trying to get anybody to feel down like, hey, we're not doing things over here, we're slow moving. But I'm seeing that people are waking up, they're getting things moving, and they're pushing a little bit harder than before. And it's a good feeling to have that kind of support.
No, it's great, and thank you for that. And we talk about the future of the department and how there, a new police headquarters could potentially be seen in the future. I know in our last episode, Mayor also talked about that as well. And so these are things that not only the department and the town can look forward to, but the community can, because with a increased, bigger headquarters with updated equipment comes better, more innovative abilities within the department. To kind of to bring this train home a bit, my last question for you is, for anyone listening, what is one safety tip you would give anyone who's listening to this podcast?
Well, it's a safety tip. Personal safety. I'll give you one there. Crime prevention tip: lock your cars.
Okay.
Lock your cars.
Yeah.
My gosh, we have more guns stolen out of unlocked cars than you can shake a stick at. It's not a Summerville problem. It's a United States of America problem. People become forgetful and lackadaisical, and they leave their handguns or their rifles and shotguns in their vehicle, and they get stolen. So the days of smashing windows out and grabbing what's in it, you don't have that as much anymore. We have people who lift door handles. And I'd be ventured to say that if you went and looked at some motion sensor surveillance video of your house, and you went to the middle of the night where you had movement and it started recording, that you've seen people, or you will see people, usually young people, with gloves on and probably mask or hoodie, that are lifting door handles, and your car was locked, and you were going to be a victim of opportunity, and you weren't. But don't worry. The whole street was checked, and trust me, they do this. You think you haven't had a person in your yard shake your door, you're sadly mistaken. Daytime burglaries are real. Don't think because you're gone in the daytime and you have an alarm that people won't come look in your window, steal your packages off your porch. It happens daily. But safety tips: be aware of your surroundings. Always have a cell phone. If you're a woman, female, if you're not a concealed weapons or open weapons carrier, and unless you feel very comfortable with yourself, keep your cell phone readily available. Certainly not somewhere where it can be taken from you, but in your hand. Males, I'd say this for everybody: just keep an eye on your surroundings. Watch people watch you. Some of you people are very good at doing this. We used to say when you went to the mall, the people watch. But no, just be aware of your surroundings, man. People become so lackadaisical. They're walking around typing on their cell phone, and they nearly almost walk into you. We've had people get hit by cars texting on their cell phones, and then they put the earbuds in, and they have no idea what's going on around them.
Yeah, you can't hear, you won't see.
Yeah, and I guess I will get executed figuratively if I don't go back to another safety tip. This is distracted driving. Everybody's texting. Everybody's texting, man. You got to stop. Pull over, set the feature up to where if your car is in motion, it's not going to allow you to text. No text is worth your life. No text is worth your car getting banged up and having to go through the problems you have to go through to get your car back or replaced. But people are irreplaceable. They're not replaceable. So that's my tips. That's kind of what I have to go with. But one last thing I'll say is, man, support your law enforcement. We tell police officers and sheriff's deputies and state troopers, thank you, because I'm gonna tell you something. This town is absolutely incredible. They treat us, the citizens here, treat us. We're spoiled. We're truly spoiled living in this town. I'm just blessed to be here, and it's like this throughout the Low Country and in the state of South Carolina. The respect is still there. We do have moments of absolute disrespect, but say thank you. We are not as blessed as other law enforcement agencies around the country. You will make a cop's day by saying thank you. You're not going to hurt the feelings, I promise.
Well, Chief Wright, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It was very insightful just to hear about the department, your history, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners are going to be very appreciative of your time as well, sitting down. And just thank you so much for your leadership and dedication to the town, to the citizens, and to the department.
Well, I like what you're doing here, man. I think what Chris is doing is a great stride for the town of Summerville, and you're putting us into an elevated place we haven't been at before. So I'm really appreciative of that, and I'm really proud of you and the things you're doing and where you're going to take us into the future.
I appreciate it, Chief. Thank you so much.
You bet.